God of War is a 2005 action-adventure game developed by Santa Monica Studio and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. First released for the PlayStation 2 on March 22, 2005, the game is the first installment in the God of War series and the fourth chronologically. Loosely based on Greek mythology, it is set in ancient Greece with vengeance as its central motif. The player controls the protagonist Kratos, a Spartan warrior who serves the Olympian gods. The goddess Athena tasks Kratos with killing Ares, the god of war, and Kratos' former mentor who tricked Kratos into killing his wife and daughter. As Ares besieges Athens out of hatred for Athena, Kratos embarks on a quest to find the one object capable of stopping the god once and for all, Pandora's box. The gameplay of God of War focuses on combo-based combat, achieved through the player's main weapon, the Blades of Chaos, and a secondary weapon acquired later in the game. It features quick-time events that require the player to complete various game controller actions in a time sequence to defeat stronger enemies and bosses. The player can use up to 4 magical attacks and a powerful enhancing ability as alternative combat options. It also features puzzles and platforming elements. Upon being released on the PlayStation 2 console, God of War was universally acclaimed, being highly praised for its graphics, sound, story, and gameplay, and has been cited as one of the greatest video games ever made. Regarded as one of the best action-adventure games for the platform, God of War won several Game of the Year awards. In 2009, entertainment website IGN named God of War the 7th best PlayStation 2 game of all time. The game sold over 4.6 million units by June 2012, making it the 12th best-selling PlayStation 2 game of all time. The success of the game led to the development of 8 more games and expansion into other media. The game and its first sequel, God of War 2, were remastered and re-released in November 2009 as the God of War Collection, and in 2012, the remastered version was re-released as part of the God of War Saga, both for the PlayStation 3. God of War Collection was later ported to the PlayStation Vita in 2014. A novelization of the game was published in May 2010, and a film adaptation had been in development for many years but was ultimately cancelled. A remake of the original God of War trilogy for the PlayStation 5 was announced in February of 2026. Gameplay. God of War is a third-person single-player action-adventure video game with hack-and-slash elements viewed from a fixed camera perspective. The player controls the character Kratos in combo-based combat, platforming, and puzzle game elements, and battles Greek mythological foes that include undead soldiers, harpies, minotaurs, Medusa and the Gorgons, Cyclops, wraiths, sirens, satyrs, centaurs, Cerebuses, and boss opponents, the Hydra and a giant minotaur known as Pandora's Guardian. Platforming elements require the player to climb walls and ladders, jump across chasms, swing on ropes, and balance across beams to proceed through sections of the game. Some puzzles are simple, such as moving a box so the player can use it as a jumping off point to access a pathway unreachable with normal jumping, but others are more complex, such as finding several items across different areas of the game to unlock one door. Throughout the game world, the player finds green, blue, and red chests that contain orbs of the corresponding color. Green orbs replenish the player's health, blue orbs replenish magic, and red orbs provide experience for upgrading weapons and magic, and replenish the rage meter, which, if full, allows for the usage of the Rage of the Gods ability. Red orbs are also collected by killing foes and destroying certain inanimate objects. The player can also find Gorgon Eyes and Phoenix Feathers that increase the length of the health and magic meters respectively. Combat. Kratos' main weapon is the Blades of Chaos, a pair of blades attached to chains wrapped around the character's wrists and forearms. In gameplay, the blades can be swung in various maneuvers. Later in the game, Kratos acquires a secondary weapon called the Blade of Artemis, a large sword that offers alternative combat options. Kratos also learns the use of 4 magical abilities, which allow him to kill individual and multiple targets. Zeus's Fury, which allows him to throw lightning bolts at distant targets. Medusa's Gaze, which turns enemies to stone. Poseidon's Rage, which summons lightning from the sky and damages enemies within its radius, and Army of Hades, which summons souls of the dead to attack enemies. A relic called Poseidon's Trident allows Kratos to breathe underwater and navigate through this environment. Early in the game, Kratos acquires a special ability called Rage of the Gods, which provides temporary invulnerability and increased attack damage. In combat, a quick time event, QTE, is initiated when a player has weakened a strong foe. The player performs a sequence of actions on the game controller shortly after an image of its circle button appears as the on-prompt screen. This allows for limited control of Kratos during a quick time event cinematic sequence, which, if successful, ends the battle. Failure usually results in damaging Kratos. Similar in function is a quick time sex minigame that occurs when Kratos encounters female twins. This became a regular feature throughout the series until God of War Ghost of Sparta in 2010. When the game is completed, a challenge mode, 10 trials called the Challenge of the Gods, is unlocked. This requires players to complete a series of specific tasks. The player may unlock bonus costumes for Kratos, behind-the-scenes videos, and concept art of the character's environments as rewards. Completion of each difficulty level unlocks additional rewards. Synopsis of the game. Setting. God of War is set in an alternate version of ancient Greece, populated by the Olympian gods, titans, and other Greek mythological beings. With the exception of flashbacks, the events of the game are set between those of the games Chains of Olympus from 2008 and Ghost of Sparta in 2010. There are 6 locations explored, including fictional versions of the real-world Aegean Sea and Athens, and fictional locations such as the Desert of Lost Souls, the Temple of Pandora, the Underworld, and a brief scene on Mount Olympus. The Aegean Sea setting includes a mass of shipwrecked vessels. Athens is a war-torn city under assault by Ares, the god of war. Beyond the city is the Desert of Lost Souls, a vast and windy desert of ancient ruins. The majority of the game occurs in Pandora's Temple, which is chained to the back of the gigantic titan Kronos, who crawls through the desert. The massive temple, constructed by the architect Pathos Verdes III, is filled with traps and monsters, and has 3 sections dedicated to the titan Atlas and gods Poseidon and Hades, respectively. The Underworld is a fiery realm with spiked pillars full of souls and flaming versions of previous encountered enemies. Athens is the scene of the final battle before a denouement on Mount Olympus in the God of War's throne room. Characters. The protagonist of the game is Kratos, voiced by Terrence C. Carson, a Spartan warrior who serves the Olympian gods. Other characters include a host of Greek gods such as Athena, Carol Ruggier, the goddess of wisdom, and Kratos' ally and mentor, Ares, Stephen Blum, the god of war and main antagonist, Poseidon, Fred Tatasciore, the god of the sea, Aphrodite, also played by Carol Ruggier, the goddess of love and sexuality, Zeus, Paul Eating, the king of the gods, Artemis, played by Claudia Black, the goddess of the hunt, and Hades, Nolan North, the god of the underworld. Several of the gods aid Kratos with magic or weapons. Minor characters include the Oracle of Athens, played by Susan Blakesley, the Gravedigger, also played by Paul Eating, the Body Burner, Christopher Corey Smith, and the Boat Captain, Keith Ferguson. Other characters appear in flashbacks, including Kratos' wife, Lysandra, Gwendolyn Yeo, his daughter, Calliope, the Barbarian King, and a village oracle, Susan Blakesley. The game is narrated by Linda Hunt. Plot of the game. Kratos is a warrior who serves the Greek gods of Olympus. Flashbacks reveal that he was once a successful but bloodthirsty captain in the Spartan army and led his men to several victories before being defeated by a barbarian king. Facing death, Kratos called on the god of war Ares, whom he promised to serve if the god would spare his men and provide the power to destroy their enemies. Ares agreed and bonded the Blades of Chaos, a pair of chain blades forged in the depths of Tartarus, to his new servant Kratos. Equipped with the blades, He then decapitated the barbarian king. Kratos waged war at the behest of Ares, eventually leading an attack on a village occupied by worshippers of Athena. Unknown to Kratos, Ares had secretly transported Kratos' wife and daughter to the village. During his frenzied attack on its temple, Kratos accidentally killed them in a blind fury. Although Ares believed this act would free Kratos to become the perfect warrior, the horrified and saddened Spartan instead renounced his pledge of servitude to the god and swore vengeance against him. The oracle of the destroyed village cursed Kratos by bonding the ashes of his dead family to his skin, turning it ash white and earning him the nickname Ghost of Sparta. Plagued by nightmares of his horrible deed, Kratos vowed to serve the other gods in hope of ridding himself of the visions. When the game starts, Kratos had been serving the gods for 10 years. He kills the Hydra on behalf of Poseidon, but he has grown tired of his service and suffering. He summons Athena, who states that if Kratos performs one final act, the murder of Ares, he will be forgiven for killing his family. Ares is waging war on the city of Athens out of hatred of his sister Athena, who assigns Kratos to destroy Ares because Zeus has forbidden divine intervention. Athena guides Kratos to the war-torn Athens. After a strange encounter with a gravedigger who encourages him to continue his task, Kratos battles his way to Athens' oracle, finds her, and learns that the only way to defeat Ares is with Pandora's box, a mythical artifact that grants the power to kill a god. Kratos enters the Desert of Lost Souls, and Athena tells him Pandora's box is hidden in a temple chained to the back of the Titan Kronos, a punishment by Zeus for Kronos' role in the Great War. Kratos summons Kronos, climbs for 3 days before reaching the temple entrance, overcomes an array of deadly traps and an army of monsters, and eventually finds the box. But Ares, aware of his former servant's success, kills Kratos as he is leaving the temple by hurling a large pillar into him. While Harpies take the box to Ares, Kratos falls into the underworld. He battles his way through the fiery realm of the dead, and with help from the mysterious gravedigger who tells him Athena is not the only god watching over him, he escapes and returns to Athens. Kratos recovers Pandora's box from Ares, opens it, and uses its power to become godlike and engages Ares in a fierce battle. Despite Ares' best efforts to destroy Kratos physically and mentally, including stripping him of all weapons and magic, and then forcing him to relive his family's death, Kratos overcomes and kills Ares with the Blade of the Gods, a giant sword that was being used as an ornamental bridge to Athens. The city is saved, and Athena tells Kratos that although his sins are forgiven, the gods cannot erase his nightmares. Forsaken by the gods, he tries to commit suicide by casting himself into the Aegean Sea, but Athena intervenes and transports him to Mount Olympus. As a reward for his service to the gods, Athena provided Kratos with a new set of blades and a seat as the new god of war, where he watches over all the world's wars through history. Development. Sony's Santa Monica studio began development of God of War in 2002 under the working title Dark Odyssey, and unveiled it 2 years later at SCEA Santa Monica Gamers Day 2004. Game director and creator David Jaffe said that while the idea for God of War was his own, the concept owed a debt to Capcom because he had played Onimusha and said, "Let's do that all with Greek mythology." He was inspired in part by the 1981 film Clash of the Titans, saying, "The real high concept for me was merging it with Heavy Metal Magazine." He said he liked both the kid stuff with Greek mythology, and the idea of adding more adult themes such as sex and violence. The development team gave themselves lots of freedom to modify the myths, and Jaffe said they took the coolest aspects of the subject and wrote a story using those elements. Director of Visual Development and lead concept artist Charlie Wynn drew inspiration from classic films like Clash of the Titans, as well as more contemporary films such as Gladiator from 2000, for tonal inspiration to lead the visual design of Kratos, other characters, and the world of God of War. The game uses Santa Monica's Kinetica engine, which they developed for their previous game Kinetica in 2001. For God of War, Jaffe said the creative team's goal was to make the player feel brutal, letting their inner beast free, and just going nuts. He also said the game's combat system would have an unparalleled degree of freedom. The team designed two systems of combat: a macro system, which gives players a choice between normal combat, magical attacks, or using the QTE feature to kill a foe, and a micro system, where players press a sequence of buttons to perform different attacks. The developer said there would be 15 to 25 different attacks with the player's main weapon in the final game, with a freeform combo system that allowed players to combine moves in almost any order. The gameplay was described as merging the action of Devil May Cry with the puzzle solving of Ico, and the players would be able to sunder enemies with a single move, such as by ripping them in half. Santa Monica designed different types of puzzles for the game, including self-contained ones that incorporate up to 3 rooms of the game, and global puzzles that spread across 4 or 5 areas. Jaffe compared the game to the popular Prince of Persia series, which also incorporates puzzles and platforming elements, and said that while each puzzle in that series is a slight variation of the last, each puzzle in God of War is its own beast. According to Eurogamer, the gameplay of Capcom's 1989 arcade game Strider was also a vital influence on God of War. Sony gave Jaffe nearly complete creative control to develop the game on his terms with a substantial budget. Jaffe wanted to make the game out of passion, not fear, and that it would be a game that Jaffe as a game player would want to play. Jaffe said the 1981 film Raiders of the Lost Ark also inspired the development of God of War. He wanted to make players feel like he felt as a child watching that film, but did not want to put the player in the role of an adventurer, referencing the Legend of Zelda games. He elaborated that God of War was designed to be simplistic and forward-moving, but the game was not innovative or unique, and that was intentional. Jaffe said that their system was shallow, and it forced the team to constantly create new content to trapeze the player from one area of interest to the next. He said he understood modular game design, the need to have great-looking, high-detail levels without having to build and texture every minuscule piece of the environment. But he was going to get bored if they did not step outside of those boundaries. Jaffe confirmed the game would be a cinematic presentation. He said that at the 2004 Electronic Gaming Expo E3, they got to see where players were having issues with the camera system and said, "We are doing extensive focus tests and using data compiled from E3 to find and fix the problem areas of the cameras." He said he had the confidence that his team would fix the problems before the game's release. However, he said if players hate cinematic camera systems, nothing we can do will help you like the God of War cameras. For about 3 months during early development, Jaffe had seriously considered doing the game from the first person's perspective. This consideration came from Dreamcast game Maken X, as he said it was one of the few games where I saw melee combat done well in a first-person perspective. After seeing presentations of Ico and Devil May Cry at DICE Summit in Las Vegas, Jaffe and lead programmer Tim Moss ultimately decided to focus on a third-person camera, as Jaffe felt the first-person view would not have the, quote, kind of emotion and combat and character building that I was hoping to do, end quote. Release. The demo of God of War, entitled God of War: The Hydra Battle, was released on January 1st, 2005. It featured Kratos battling various opponents and ending with a portion of the Hydra Battle that opens the main game. The game was released on March 22nd in North America, July 8th in the United Kingdom, and November 17th in Japan. Remastered port. The game and its first sequel, God of War 2, were released in North America on November 17, 2009, as part of the God of War collection, featuring remastered ports of both games for the PlayStation 3 platform, with improved graphics and support for PlayStation 3 trophies. It became available in Japan on March 18, 2010, Australia on April 29th, and the UK on April 30th. God of War Collection was released as a digital download on the PlayStation Store on November 2nd, 2010, and was the first product containing PlayStation 2 software available via download. PlayStation Plus subscribers could download a 1-hour trial of each game. By June 2012, God of War Collection had sold more than 2.4 million copies worldwide. A PlayStation Vita version of God of War Collection was released on May 6, 2014. On August 28, 2012, God of War Collection, God of War 3, and God of War Origins Collection were included in the God of War Saga under Sony's line of PlayStation collections for the PlayStation 3 in North America. Remake. During the February 2026 State of Play presentation on February 12th, T.C. Carson, the voice of Kratos in the original Greek-era trilogy, announced that remakes of God of War 2, and God of War 3 were in development for the PlayStation 5. The project, titled God of War Trilogy Remake, was described as being in early development at the time of its announcement. Reception. God of War received universal acclaim from critics, according to review aggregator website Metacritic. Tom Lane of CNN wrote, God of War is the type of game that makes you remember why you play games in the first place. He said it is addictive, and the action is balanced with a modest amount of puzzle and platforming elements. He praised how quickly it progresses and said it is one of the most violent games on the market. Raymond Padilla of GameSpy said the gameplay is excellent and has some of the goriest, most exaggerated, and over-the-top violence I've ever seen. He praised the combo system for being generous, with players easily able to execute attack combinations, but added that it can challenge players who throw themselves into the system. Chris Sell of PALGN wrote that the most enjoyable aspect of the combat is its simplicity. He said the QTEs are superbly enjoyable, highly satisfying, and most entertaining during boss fights. In regards to combining combat with platforming, Cell said God of War pulls it off perfectly. Lane said the story is compelling, while Cell stated it was well laid out and rarely stalls. Padilla wrote, God of War is the best thing to happen to Greek mythology since Harry Hamlin played Perseus in Clash of the Titans. He praised the sound as very strong, but felt that some of the voice acting and music tracks are overstated. Kristen Reed of Eurogamer said the audio is a stunningly evocative example of a well-judged dramatic soundtrack and thunderous effects. Cell stated the graphics are quite possibly the best on the PS2 and rival games on the Xbox. He said the character models are excellent and each level has its own distinctive feel. Eric Blattberg of PlayStation Universe praised the graphics for being seamless, realistic, and capable of being able to run at 480p on widescreen television. He said the textures are great and the environments are stunning and unbelievably detailed. Mike Reparaz of Games Radar noted the amount of detail, elaborated that as a consequence of the aging hardware of the PS2, the graphics occasionally stutter or even slow down. He still gave the game a perfect score, concluding, these problems are minor nits next to God of War's creative design, riveting plot, and sheer balls-out fun. One of the best action titles on the PS2, God of War stands out as an ultra-violent masterpiece. Cell said God of War has very few flaws and that the only one worth mentioning is the camera system. He said that although the cameras do a great job of following Kratos, there are a fair few annoying moments when you're attacked by something off-screen, or you fail to make a jump because you couldn't really see the jump properly. Other minor complaints from Cell include its lack of replayability, the amount of time it takes to upgrade items, and a final fight with Ares, which he said is, quote, a little disappointing. Reed wrote that in few notable occasions, he found some of the platforming balancing acts a little bothersome. He said players may be overwhelmed by the number of enemies, but they will eventually get their, quote, brain and reactions in gear and move on to the next gripping section and feel hugely satisfied. Sales. By the end of July, God of War was the 6th best-selling game of 2005 up to that point. On March 1st, 2006, it became available in the PlayStation 2 lineup of greatest hits. By July 20, 2006, the game had sold 1 million units and earned $43 million in the United States alone. Next Generation ranked it as the 50th highest-selling game launched for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, or GameCube between 2000 of January and July 2006 in that country. In June 2012, Sony reported that the game had sold over 4.6 million units. Awards and accolades. God of War won several Game of the Year awards. At the 2005 Spike Video Game Awards, it was named Best Action Game, and David Jaffe won Designer of the Year for the game. It was also a nominee for Game of the Year, Best Performance by a Human Male, T.C. Carson as Kratos, and Best Original Score. At the 9th Annual Interactive Achievement Awards, now known as the DICE Awards, God of War won the most awards of the ceremony, including Overall Game of the Year, Console Game of the Year, Action Adventure Game of the Year, Outstanding Achievement in Animation, Outstanding Achievement in Original Musical Composition, Outstanding Achievement in Sound Design, and Outstanding Character Performance for a male for Carson's portrayal. In 2009, IGN named God of War the 7th best PlayStation 2 game of all time. In November 2012, Complex Magazine named God of War the 11th best PlayStation 2 game of all time, and placed it 16th on the list made again in 2022. Information in the video was provided by Wikipedia.